Sorry I am late, everybody. I just realized that I never clicked the go live button. Man, I did such a great speech too. Anyway, sorry to be late, but welcome. Thanks for joining me for this quick look at this brand new thing that I am incredibly excited about. I've been working on this for some years now, trying to make it the most awesome thing of its kind available. So I want to do a quick tour of that, and then we're going to draw some zombies because in a weird way, like the zombies we're going to draw today are kind of the whole point of all of this. So, just as an introduction, this is my brand new program called People Figure Drawing for Creatives. And emphasis on the creatives because that's why I made this whole thing to be this like vehicle, this way to give your art that authority, being really good at drawing gestures, anatomy, giving you all of that authority so that the characters that you create, the humanoid monsters that we're going to do today, all of that stuff can only really be believable and really resonate with your viewer when it has that authority at its core, when it has that believable anatomy, posture, when it just strikes that right chord. So I made all of this, or I first started down this whole road when I realized in my role as a teacher that often most of the character art portfolios that I review, the design is actually quite good. Like the costuming is cool. The armor is cool. The story, the world that that character's building is working. But the human drawing at the core of that, like that human being factor, that's always just sort of a 2 second pass or fail thing. Like you instantly either believe that this is a human that you relate to, or it kind of just something is weird, even subconsciously. And I'm betting all of you have seen this in character art before, or you felt it in your own art. Like this is pretty good, but something's off and I don't quite know what, and it just sinks the whole thing. And I hate that. Like there's all of this cool character design out there that sort of gets dismissed because it doesn't have that authority. That is like my favorite word in art lately. And that's what all of this is designed to give you, is like finally to give you that rock solid foundation in drawing figures, in anatomy, in gesture, in finding that human factor so that when people look at your art, they just buy it instantly. It passes that 2 second gut reaction of, okay, I am looking at a human or a human-ish monster, and I just accept that, and then it lets them kind of receive the rest of the story, the rest of the world that you're building. So all of this is kind of a means to an end because there's a lot of very good but very academic material out there for figure drawing. And all of that stuff is useful, but I specifically wanted this to be a means to an end, kind of a way to turn all of that academic knowledge and authority and turn it into this tool for you to make the cool things that you want to make. So that is what today is all about. Like we're going to use some pretty, intense anatomy knowledge to make zombies and make them feel real and make them feel like they tell a story that people will believe. So this is the fun stuff. Taking something like kind of dry and academic and turning it into power that we can use to make the cool things that we want to make. So just as a quick look at how this works, upon enrollment, you jump into this, which is the coaching dashboard. The day you enroll, you get a message from me through the platform. Like I'm actually going to write that to you, not just an auto email, because I want to establish that coach artist relationship immediately. This is similar to my mentorship program, but different in some key ways. For this one, there is no set schedule. There is no weekly live class or anything like that. It is just you and me working through this at your own pace. So the day you get in, you start, you work through these at the structure provided. And this is all like our weekly schedule is designed to give you some structure without stress. It's there as a kind of framework for everything because one thing I can't stand about online courses, and I have bought plenty in my life, is you buy it, you're very excited to make the thing, and you watch three videos and then abandon it. This is all very carefully designed to prevent that from happening. Kind of one of those things where show up for this and I will just carry you to the top of the mountain. Like we will have transformative forward progress on this. So it's all laid out very thoughtfully for that. Working through things week by week, things build on one another, like concepts and theories about what makes a drawing feel human. It actually starts there with that human factor. Things like gesture, form, structure. Then we move into anatomy. I have a background as a medical illustrator, so this is kind of like it was weird. It was like coming home for me on this. But what I specifically wanted to do was create something different that doesn't burn people out. This is shape anatomy. This is kind of the whole system to finally make anatomy something accessible and interesting and something that you can actually commit to memory. This is included in enrollment and it's sort of the whole jump off point for the entire anatomy section where we're going to learn. I'm going to walk you through all of these forms, learn them in some ways that make them a lot more simplified and easy to remember, like not medical school levels of detail, but the shapes that you need to remember. And I even give them like names that you won't find in medical atlases because what I think is most important about this is like understanding it three-dimensionally, drawing it yourself. Every one of these has a lot of you picking up the stylus and working through this with me, because that's the best way to kind of take what you read and see on a page and turn it into skills that you remember is for your hand to do it. And then to kind of give it your own name. Like the forearm bridge, my anatomy teacher would excommunicate me if he knew that I was labeling that structure as forearm bridge. But I think that's all that matters is making it personal to yourself. All of the actual technical names are included in the course too, if you're interested in that. But I don't want everybody to get bogged down and burned out again trying to tackle anatomy. I want this to really work. And this works. It's really cool. This is one of the things I am like most excited about in all of this. And then taking all of this stuff and how to turn it into that authority that we need to make characters work. So, anybody considering this, I always want to, this is a big thing to jump into. So if please check out the page for this, and I'll ask my team to paste that into the chat if it's not there already. But this is like the main page for it. All the way at the bottom is this ask a question button. Those go directly to me, and any questions you have, just ask. I want to make sure everybody knows exactly what they're getting and what is involved. But it is a start anytime. There are no, limited time to enroll or, hey, we only have one seat left. You better jump in. It's just there. So jump in whenever you get ready, and I am there to welcome you inside the platform as soon as you want to kind of like finally feel, awesome about drawing and painting people and the doors that that opens. Cool. All right, that's my speech, guys. Let's talk about zombies. Oh, this, before I jump into that, I love this diagram because it's kind of what I've been talking about, how basically everything to the right side of this page is all buying that authority of just creating a human that feels believable and relatable so that by the time we're doing our shape design, we're doing our concept art stuff, we're doing a painting, it has that solid foundation so that the end result is this woman who you kind of feel like you can imagine her life. Like there's this authenticity that we always need to shoot for. That's it's oddly the setup is the hard part of this. Then when we add all the fun stuff on top, that's sort of just the payoff. All right, cool. So humanoids. I've grabbed a few of these because these are monsters. They are, kind of non-humans, but I love these things. And they feel real because the anatomy feels kind of real. Like, I love this dude's giant bloated wrists. And, I like carefully posed these fingers to feel all like Sistine Chapel sort of Renaissance hands so that it would give him this very like kind of gravitas, like he is some emissary heralding the end of our world or something, right? Lots of chins we can count in nasty, like old man stuff to kind of sell this as a character that feels relatable. Like you understand this guy, even though he is this weird, chunky yellow being from another dimension, right? The anatomy is what buys that authority and kind of gets the rest of the story through the door. Super fun. This horribly mutated wasteland giant, kind of the same thing. It tells this story about the world that this guy lives in because he is hideously like malformed and one arm is huge and the other one is tiny and his face, there's a lot that is not going great for this guy, but I feel like I understand how he moves. I feel like I can see how his body works just because it has that solid grounding in real, in anatomy. I, paid attention to the way the neck muscles flow into the shoulder muscles, the way the forearm bridge group flows across the elbow joint. All of that stuff sort of buys us that authority. Which brings us to zombies. Wow, that's crazy. I did this about a decade ago and I did this about a week ago, and I sort of chose the same pose, kind of a go-to. Zombies are awesome for this because they're kind of like figure drawing, but exaggerated a lot. And there is a lot of story to tell. They exaggerate pose a lot. We're gonna look at how we do that. They tell a story, which is amazing, and they show anatomy. Just because often they're in some disgusting state of decomposition and there's, skull exposed or whatever. But we get more of a look at that anatomical knowledge that we're going to build with a zombie than we would in a normal character. So, story. This is always like you can kind of just peeling away layers with a zombie. First of all, there's the whole who was this person before they died? Um, Resident Evil 9 just came out. I'm almost done watching it, so nobody spoil the ending in the chat or anything. But the zombies are always like, who was this guy when they died, right? It's a security guard. It's somebody meandering around that hotel or whatever facility they're in. You can tell who they were and that they had a life before they succumbed to the T virus or whatever. This guy was a Viking. And the next thing that's often fun with a zombie story is how did they die? Um, Shoot some arrows through that guy. Show them like tangled up in barbed wire that they sort of stumbled into some weird trap and couldn't get out of it, right? Like, who was this person? How did they die? And finally, like, what are they doing? I love zombie posing. It's this, well, first of all, it tells you that something is going wrong with this person, right? They're kind of like barely supporting their own weight. Everything is like slouched in one way or another. It sort of implies that not all of the muscles are working together. It looks like they're very rickety, like they're easy to push over. So just by kind of it's almost like deactivating all the muscles of the back and just have somebody slumping there like their spine and its springiness is the only thing holding them up. Other things like I love the pinched shoulder into one side or kind of like posturing of one arm versus the other. It looks like some kind of the disease process or some kind of like rigor mortis or just it shows you that bad stuff is happening. So a zombie's pose, that kind of shambling walk, like there's a lot of story there. And that's part of what makes them scary, right? Is so much of this is a human. So it's like we want to recognize and relate to this, but because all this stuff is going wrong, it's scary. It's like, wait a minute, I meant to, I'm supposed to like this recognizable face, but it's all messed up and it's walking towards me in a weird way. And right, it's these alarm bells that we can ring as artists to kind of resonate with our viewers. Cool. Now, with the human form, so much of how it ends up reading relates to the relationships of these main ovals. So for the guy we're going to draw today, I'm going for like a bigger, chunkier version of a zombie versus the like super skin and bones version. There are a million different kinds of everything. But the relationship between the head oval and like how far it's sunk down into the main mass of the torso, that is a huge indicator of just how upright are you holding yourself, right? Like a zombie never is is doing good posture. They're never like sitting upright, having a conversation. They're always just like the minimum number of muscles flexed for them to sort of shamble over and eat you. So just by dropping this oval below the level of, right? Look how much more alert he looks. Like he's this, I don't know, it's something very different up here than it is below that kind of humpback. I love that. Also, the shoulders is, are they both just sort of hanging there? Like, are the collarbones just totally down? The collarbones are sort of like wings that sort of flap up and down depending on how much we're like pinching our shoulders up towards our ears. So for this one, I'm going for just maximum droop. In fact, part of what I think is cool about this pose is I'm going to do some fun asymmetry stuff too. Like one arm is bigger than the other, maybe one leg too. But it's almost like the weight of this arm is just too much for him to bother with for his shoulder. So all of those things, even with this really simple construction with a little bit of gesture line work, and I feel like I get this already, right? Like we're gonna spend the rest of the time today making this look cool and gross and anatomical, but it's sort of like the battle is won or lost here. And that is also very true of like non-zombie figures, right? You kind of feel that vibe check even at a simple construction phase. Cool. Let's get into it. And Celine, I'm gonna kind of go into like draw and talk at the same time mode, but if anybody has questions, those can just come in as we go and I'll kind of just ramble. All right. It's funny, I actually kind of like the construction shapes more as my jump off point, so I'm gonna get in there. I may have a few too many things open because I have a crazy Photoshop lag at the moment, which will not lead to great paintings.
I'm curious, Hardy, how long do you spend working on just sort of the basic gesture like you did just there?
Yeah, this one was pretty quick. That was like 10 or 20 minutes or so. Um, s- it depends. Like zombies are kind of fun and maybe a little bit. easier than average because there's such an exaggeration. Oh, why is this so slow? You know what? Maybe I will make this a smaller document. When it is, oddly, when it is a human, like a normal figure, it usually takes me a longer time because subtlety is hard. It's difficult to just achieve something that feels sort of neutral, which is really counterintuitive. Like zombies are fun because they're such an extreme. I love that. Wow. I've never been like stumped by a Photoshop glitch before, but huh. One quick second, I'm gonna stop sharing and see if that does it. Yeah, that is the issue, but if I can't share, there's not much point, is there? All right. Well,
Maybe
I'm
it
just
just
gonna,
needs a reset.
what's that?
Maybe it just needs like a reset. Like
Yeah, it could. We'll see. I'm hoping that like the smaller I draw, the less the effect will be, but it's feels very weird at the moment, but we'll see. I'll just sort of muscle through. Um, Sort of related to your question is like I find neutral to be a really powerful thing. So zombies are not that. They're very extreme. Like this is a very intense slouch that this figure is in. It's like it's very pronounced. But when we just have somebody kind of standing there feeling sort of neutral, it it's sort of a blank canvas, and there's so much nuance and subtlety there that it can sort of become this thing where people decide what they want it to be, which it's a little like abstract and philosophical, but it's super true. Um, when something is like actually neutral, it becomes sort of a blank canvas. Like I love a character who looks a little bit tired, but that's sort of it. Like other than that, you know, anybody can kind of imagine any story that they want and it will work. Um, a tired person is sort of this blank canvas of story that people can make whatever they want out of. So, it's crazy how much story can be woven into figure art.
we've got a question related to the people painting course.
Sure.
Someone's asking, what sequence of things could we expect to learn?
Yeah. Just about everything that I teach, I set up as a concepts and theories first. So just kind of academically learning why we do things, like what actually makes a good gesture. That was an oddly like I could not really find satisfactory answers for that when I was learning this stuff. So I wanted to really answer difficult questions like that. So starting with just anatomical, or not anatomical, but like academic knowledge of like why we do X, Y, and Z. Things like the human factor, you know, what actually makes a drawing feel like it passes that 2 second test of either it is or it is not, you know, feeling authentically human. Things like lines, forms, and gesture, the actual, you know, ways that sort of the stuff we've been talking about, the way different distances between the masses of our body communicate emotion and what a person is thinking, how they're feeling, what might be going on with them, that kind of stuff first. Then we get into anatomy. Well, there are some basic drawing exercises first, just to kind of make everyone very comfortable with the tools that we use. But then the whole anatomy section, um, head to toe, from, the head in general to every structure of the face, and then down through every part of the body from head to toe. And then finally, after all of that, we put it all to use with projects. So my whole like format that I like to follow is theory, concepts, then exercises to kind of make that hand-brain connection. And then we make projects. We sort of put all of this stuff to use and actually start making the thing that we set out for. Now, man, deep breath, because that's just the drawing module, sort of part one. Um, After all of that comes the painting module, where we learn everything about how to render with realism, but also style and artfulness and making brushstrokes that sort of help to communicate what we want them to, um, without over rendering. And I don't know about you guys, but I painted so many characters and figures where I liked the sketch, but by the end of it, I kind of hated the whole thing. Like I had hopelessly overworked it. I've gotten really good at helping artists avoid that trap and not get bogged down in those over rendering traps. So, a lot of that, how to sculpt with value, how to paint skin tones that feel alive and realistic, exercises for that. And then finally, we put everything into use with some full projects. I think there are more than 30 in total, including this fun section at the end where we abstract all of this into humanoids. So, kind of what I'm doing here is the section at the end, and it's sort of like the jump off point between, all this very like all the technical rigor of drawing and painting people, just because it's, anatomy is specific. There is just some stuff we have to get right with that. So at the end, it's sort of like, let's take those handcuffs off. Let's like really just draw and paint crazy things like this using our newly minted authority and knowledge. It's super fun. And this is like my favorite thing is using that technical knowledge for something crazy and fun. But that is the rough structure. It's designed as a 10-week experience, but it's very much a go at your own pace. There are coaching check-ins at very prescribed points. I also just want to say, like, it's not like you can only talk to me at those check-ins. If you ever feel stuck, there is the direct message button, the Hardy button in the whole program is always there for anybody who feels stuck. Just like my mentorship students, it's a similar format there. And I never want anybody to struggle. But yeah, that is the basic setup.
We've got someone asking a technical question. They're wondering, what resolution do you work in?
Well, usually more than this. I would usually go higher than this for a drawing like this. I'm trying to fight the lag that I think Zoom is probably the culprit for. But for a character like this, I would usually do something like 10 by 14 at 300 DPI. So this is, about half of the resolution I would usually recommend. If it's something that's going to be for print or some kind of large format use, you would want to go up for that. But so much of what I do either ends up as something that's just going to stay as a screen-based thing like concept art or web-based illustration, or books or game box covers or something that will still be relatively small. I think a good rule of thumb is just whatever the intended final output is, that at 300 DPI, and then maybe add a little extra resolution just for extra safety, but that usually does it. Cool. So working really loosely and roughly, and this is this method of drawing that I have gotten really fond of, especially working through all of these, resources I've been making for this is it's this kind of dull pencil style of sketching where I've got flow turned all the way down to 1%, and even opacity is pretty low here, just so that I can kind of find forms. It's like you have that very loose, or no, very dull pencil that you're kind of ghosting lines in and shading things. And then once I am sure that I like it. Like once I like where this line is, or once I'm ready to kind of darken in a little corner, like this dude's gross armpit, or the ambient occlusion over on this side where the pec muscle sort of like mashes against the arm, or when I'm just ready to like really define an outline. Then I didn't turn it up much, but I will turn flow up a little bit. And that feels like I am sharpening that pencil. So it's sort of like loosely and kind of like in a fuzzy way defining things. And then only when I am like really ready to commit do I actually sharpen my pencil enough to make these more permanent feeling black marks. That has been really empowering. And sort of related to a broader thing, but it's like knowing what mode you're in, like what process of a drawing or a design or a painting are we in, and what problem are we trying to solve with that? So to get started with this, kind of just trying to find the lines for this guy. Like I am kind of moving things around. I want stuff to feel impermanent. I don't want to feel like I'm instantly married to any specific mark or line, right? I kind of want this all to feel disposable so that I feel really free to like change things. That's huge with concept art, is just if we go immediately into polish lines, it's sort of like we're not really designing, we are rendering. And that for my part, and I think this is probably true for many, um, when I am rendering, I'm not designing. And a lot of us kind of want to skip to the cool part, the payoff, where things start looking, and I am very much doing that right now, where things start looking like the thing. It's like, ooh, cool. Ribs, cool little muscles. Like it's starting to feel like the thing that I intended. It's starting to like actually represent my intent. And that's fun. That's exciting. But we have to make sure that we have solved the design stuff first. So anyway, just as a little note of raising the consciousness of your art, this is really useful, is just kind of know what mode you're in. If we're designing, if we are kind of searching for shapes, keep those lines really, really loose and impermanent. Otherwise, you'll be too scared and too, oh, I love this little shoulder. I can't break that. You always have to be kind of feel empowered to just, utterly ditch it and redo it. Otherwise, your designs will feel stuck. Now, I I had this ebook pulled up to this page because this specifically, I use this page for myself, even though I made it constantly because I can never quite remember 100% where the point of the deltoid and the point of the forearm bridge, they sort of point at each other, but they're slightly offset. And I can never remember which one points towards the back and which one towards the front. So just kind of a quick check. But that's it's kind of exactly what that book is meant for, is to be a quick guide. It's pretty short. It's like 60 pages in total, and it's just organized as head to toe. So if you find yourself drawing a zombie and you can't quite remember where these two points overlap, there's a page for that. It's like it's all meant to just be this quick go-to.
We've got a career question.
Yeah,
Someone's asking, how would you recommend getting into commission work if you're not bad at art but never satisfied fully? So you train a lot, but are also busy with a different work life.
awesome. Yeah, I that is you're not alone with that one. Like I think that is probably a position a lot of artists find themselves in. You've got adulting to do and like other things to keep bills paid, but you're sort of trying to moonlight a bit or even build that lifeboat away from that day job and pivot into a creative career. Um, you mentioned something about studying and preparing that I kind of want to key in on is that we can get stuck in that mode. Is like, I'm good, but I'm not there yet. And one day I will be when I've practiced enough. And while that's logical and that can even be true in many cases, I was definitely in that mode for a long time. And I got a little bit stuck there, even to the point where, hey, do you take commissions? And I would say, like, well, no, not yet. And it's like, basically, let me tell that artist that you're better than you probably think you are. That seems to be true of like all of us. And you are more ready to contribute value with your art than you probably think. So like without knowing a thing about this artist's work or their portfolio or the markets that they're after, that seems to be almost a universal truth is that like you're you're farther along than you think and take some swings. Like if there are I don't know, to find those jobs, there are forums and things like Polycount or, any number of like community-based ways to get commissions from those seeking those out. So jump in there, put yourself out there, and just see what happens, and kind of let the market tell you where you are more than you kind of deciding, I guess. Like let the data speak instead of um I don't know, our own internal like measure for where we are in our development can very often be wrong, which is sort of crazy. It's like who would know this better than me? But I think it's true that most artists underestimate themselves. So I hope that's helpful. But that's where I would be like taking a look inwardly and also where I would be looking for those actual job breaks is with, go take a shot, see what comes back. Um, Also, there's kind of this when we are in a like launching a commission business or any kind of a career, there's sort of no job too small mentality. Like even if somebody asks you to draw something that you're not especially into and it feels like thank you, but that's not really my lane, is consider giving that thing a go. Obviously, if it's something like you're not comfortable with or that is inappropriate, those jobs are out there. So I'm not saying that, but like, you know, other stuff. If it does not feel like exactly your vibe, don't necessarily disqualify it and kind of, I don't know, cast a wide net to get started because small things end up leading to big things, and there's this kind of compounding snowball effect that we can rely on. And then in 5 years, you're in a very different place, or not even five, but a year or two. Suddenly the landscape looks really different. You've got all of this working experience. You can put on your resume like I'm a professional artist with years of experience in the industry, and that will be the truth, right? And then that opens other doors and just up and up we go. It's pretty cool. It's like this um, feedback loop that we can start. Good question. That is it is hard to launch an art career, but once it gains some momentum, it actually starts sustaining that on its own and becomes this self-reinforcing thing that is really exciting.
Now they're wondering, how did you get your first work as a concept artist, and were you excited or nervous?
Oh wow, both. Very excited. So I consider my first like real cool like job as a concept artist was Warhammer. Actually very out of the blue. This was like one of those golden emails that drops out of the sky. But an art director at Games Workshop's publishing division, Black Library, that makes all the like Warhammer 40K fiction, or they used to. I don't know if that's still the case, but he had seen something that I posted in my portfolio. Like I can't believe he found me, and I have to tell you guys, I still have that piece of art, and I'm not very impressed by it. Like it's not awesome, but they liked it and they asked if they could use it for cover art for a sci-fi anthology, like not a Warhammer thing, but if they could just put that out. And I was ecstatic. It paid very, very little, but I don't care. Like my work will be on a book cover. This is my first big thing. I was working as a medical illustrator at the time and um, you know, very much wanted something non-medical diagram to draw as part of my working life. And that's what came along. That was sort of a foot in the door moment because I, I grabbed onto that opportunity and I was like, look, I will do custom covers for you guys for the stock art fee, which is just, that is advice. I would recommend nobody ever does that, but I just devalued myself instantly. But they took me up on that offer and I did my first Warhammer 40K cover, and this was in like 2008. And I really made sure I did like the best art I had ever done in my life because that was such a unique and rare opportunity. And they liked it and on we went. They actually kindly were like, "Look, our rate for covers is higher than that, so we'll pay you that." Like I sure wasn't good at negotiating, so they sort of kindly helped me with that. And then that became a regular client, and that led to other clients, which led to, you know, years later, all of my like my favorite career highlights eventually all sort of rippled out from that single email. And I guess if I think about it, that email only resulted from me painting something that I thought was cool and and posting it and just very, very luckily the right eyes happened to be wandering that board and one of those golden emails dropped out of the sky. So, well, long story, but that was my first job and I'm very grateful for that. Um, I still like, even though I'm pretty some years removed from that like launching phase, um, artists who I work with are, are still having that day happen for them. That is like my favorite thing as a teacher and a mentor is when someone I've worked with sends me a message like, "Hey, look at what just happened." Like that is the greatest. And it's still happening in 2026 despite all of the headwinds that we face. Although I would kind of say that art has always been a pretty hard thing to break into. But even in 2026, that is still happening, which is awesome.
We've
Cool.
got a question related to your courses now.
Sure.
Someone's asking, should I do the people course before Concept Art Academy? What's the
Ah,
best order?
that's such a good question. To tell you the truth, it's going to depend a lot on the artist and like what they want out of this. Like if you are making a character art portfolio, I would probably recommend people first, just because it's kind of the foundation for that. Um, Concept Art Academy, like my full mentorship, we will get more into like the world building side, the shape design, the things that make your work look researched and thoughtful and, created with intent and how to communicate industry value with your work, which I think that's just quite literally the difference between getting hired and not is just, hey, what can your work do for us in our project? Right? So like that stuff. But if it's going to be a character art portfolio, it will always be only as good as the person at the base of that. So I think people is probably a good place to start for those who are all in on characters. Now, if you want more of a like well-rounded, generalist type of thing, Concept Art Academy, my main mentorship is probably going to work better as a first stop. If you decide you want to specialize in characters, that's the beauty of the way we're doing this one is that it's always just there to jump into. It's kind of always there whenever it's time, for your schedule. So so there's some flexibility there. Depends on the artist and what their ultimate goal is. Cool. Um, Another thing about this sort of like low flow, dull pencil way of doing this that I absolutely love is kind of like eraser drawing. Um, I feel like I'm describing all of these shoulder muscles probably most effectively when I erase away, like when I carve this little divot into this junction of the collarbone and the shoulder, or by kind of sharpening the margin between this pec muscle and the ribs underneath. Um, that I think is incredibly descriptive, and it's a great way to like make things look like they're defined more by shapes and light than actual drawing lines. It's sort of like we're sculpting with value a bit more. Just where I'm erasing right here is making the biceps sort of like press against this shoulder, this pec junction in a way that I really like. Anyway, this whole pencil brush technique has opened up a lot for me, and it's practically it's a look you will see a lot in all of the resources for the people course because I love it. It feels kind of it feels all art school-ish, which I really like. Um, I've use that term kind of jokingly, but I think that art school look just means like authority. It kind of just looks like somebody who has been doing their homework and studying and stuff. Um, really cool. I gotta zombie this guy up. He's like in too good a shape to be dead.
Yeah, you've really like the planes that you have that you just know where to put the shadows versus the lights.
You know what is a great zombification move is just add gross little like stringy tendon things. So instead of all these like you know gains at the gym muscles, I'll turn these more into these little wispy things, and I think he will quickly get nice and disgusting and some wrinkles and stuff. Just to monster him up a little bit more. It's funny, I'm that's often the way that works for me is I'm kind of going with the muscle masses that I'm going with like superhero muscles when that is not necessarily what you want for every case. And I'd say for this guy, a little more like mutated, corrupted grossness is probably called for.
Superhero gone zombie.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, cool. Right.
We've got a few people wondering, do you have advice for how to put together a portfolio that helps an artist break in? So sort of like overcoming the catch-22 of needing experience to get experience.
Absolutely. You nailed it. Like everybody wants to hire artists with experience, but how do you get that experience if no one will hire you? Um, so the answer to that is we just need to fake the impression of experience. But aside from that, and kind of coming back to something from earlier, is I think the value that you contribute is everything with that. So the best advice I have is with all of your imagination, try and envision that art director or that producer or recruiter who would be hiring you. Think about what what are they going through? Like what phase of their project are they in? What stress are they under? What just like what thing are they desperately trying to get checked off of their list to move their project forward? And try to be the answer to that. So that's all part of that, like demonstrating value approach. That a lot of what I teach is that's the whole lens of it, is just when the right eyes finally, luckily click on your portfolio, how do we make them know that you are just a no-brainer, like a home run hire? And there's a lot of psychology behind that. But the overall goal is just reassurance, letting them know that like, oh, finally, I have found this artist who is going to be the answer to all of our problems. Like that's the impression that we're trying to create. How do we do that? Um, we need, or this is a pretty long conversation, but a few kind of quick things are we want you to look like you are ready to contribute immediately. So, like an artist who needs no hand holding, for example, that's really great. So, obviously, very obviously, fundamental skills are going to be huge. Just, do you draw well? Do you paint things that look realistic and cool? And, are communicated clearly? Because a lot of these roles you are sort of a part of a team. And if you are drawing things that won't make any sense for a 3D modeler, then that's going to be a strike against you, right? So clarity, fundamental strength, I think those are two, excuse me, like, first check those boxes. And I'll bet you're doing that. Um, Now, after that, I love trying to show that I am like thinking ahead of their needs. So this is all part of that. Imagine what that art director is thinking about kind of step. Um, what are they trying to do? It's often that they're in some cycle of fundraising or they need to get investors excited about something. How can we help them with that? Sometimes just like pure awesomeness of your rendering, like how eye candy gorgeous can you make something? How much of an original idea do you have? Like what is something, show them something they haven't seen somewhere else, either with a distinctive style or a clever idea or just something memorable and different that makes it seem like this is an artist who I need, like, because the whole like arithmetic of when this works or when it doesn't, and this sounds kind of like cold and mercenary, but it's true, is that we have to be worth more than they're paying us. Like when they look at your work, they need to sort of see how it's going to make money for their project. Otherwise, it's they're not going to pay you out of the goodness of their heart, right? It's you will be hired because what you and uniquely you can contribute is going to end up with a net gain for their whole business. So, I guess that's a little vague and philosophical, but that I think is the most helpful like mindset change that I think actually is going to make a difference on moving that needle of like hired or not. So I hope that is helpful for you. A great way to sort of like fake experience, even if you have not actually had any professional experience, is to create projects for yourself. Like design six characters or six monsters within a single thing, and then make a logo for it. Make it look like it was some published title. If you look at the trending page of ArtStation right now, most of the things you're going to see have some kind of logo. It just makes it gives that illusion of you are a pro with some years of experience and you have been working in the industry, and all of those reassurances that we want to give to those doing the hiring. Uh, I could go on that topic, but that's probably a good place to pause for that. I hope that is helpful.
We had some technical questions come in, so I'll
Yeah,
put those through.
cool.
Someone said, when illustrating for print, do you work in CMYK or do you always work in RGB and convert the final render when necessary?
The latter for me usually. And I can remember many years ago as a graphic design undergrad student, um, being told to always work in CMYK, but I just don't like the way the colors look on screen, so I just sort of didn't, and oddly, it hasn't been an issue. So I don't actually know if that is correct or Celine, in your graphic design, like what's your answer to that? Because I think I might be doing it the wrong way and nobody's ever yelled at me about it.
I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think CMYK does look funny on screen. It's kind of nice to sometimes export and just make the comparison and
Yeah,
kind of like as you're working with the client, be like, are you sure this is kind of the colors you're wanting? Because this is what it looks like on screen versus print. And
right,
it's tricky because on screen you've got light shining through the colors, and on the print, we just have the light reflecting off the paper. So even if it's CMYK on screen, it still will usually look different than printed.
right.
So I think it's sort of like you got to do some testing basically. You got to print off some, see what it looks like, get some proofs.
Gotcha. Actually,
Yeah.
that's and like I guess when you does CMYK look more faithful to like the printed in hand thing later or not really?
Yeah, I think it does, but even still, the color matching is never going to be perfect. So if colors are really important to them, like if they have a color palette and they've got a bunch of assets already printed,
Yeah,
it's always important to get those matched um, when you're actually going to print.
gotcha.
Okay, we got another question about technical things.
Okay.
In your experience, have you ever been asked to vectorize your work by a client, or has the estimated resolution been enough?
Um, I've never like a working client. When I get asked to vectorize something is when a friend says like, "Hey, can you design a t-shirt for me?" And like, "Oh, the printer said they needs vector. What does that mean?" And then I will do like some absolute hack in Illustrator to sort of vectorize it. I've never really been asked to do that by a like a professional client. Um, I think there are much better tools for that that I'm probably not aware of, but not a lot of that for me personally, to be honest. It seems like when I like draw or paint something like this, and I usually just send it over email or put it in a folder to share. It's usually RGB. It's usually a raster type of thing like this. I guess I'm pretty squarely in like a digital painting lane, and like if somebody was looking for a more vector style, graphic style, they probably wouldn't have approached me. I wouldn't really be getting that job anyway. So that is probably a reason why I'm like insulated from that. Yeah, sorry, I'm not I'm not a ton of help with the technical questions today. I'm like, I don't know, just draw it.
It's a lot of like either very technical questions or career specific.
That is awesome. Does anybody have questions about the nuances of how ab wrinkles roll on a zombie? No, I'm kidding, because I'm having a ton of fun with that right now. Um, Really quickly, actually, while I am on this, there is sort of a truism of gesture drawing that I really like. And there is this gesture cheat sheet that I made as part of the whole section of the program, but it's the letter K. It's on one side of the torso having like, a long, stretchy, extended thing, so that on the other side it's kind of pinched. Just doing those things, kind of making this big S curve, usually makes things look dynamic. And of course, it's absurdly exaggerated on this guy's weird zombie abs, but like that stuff is powerful. And I love when it can just be boiled down into this little bumper sticker of, hey, remember the K curve, or, remember the way we kind of do offset symmetry, or just I've kind of collected all of these really useful little pearls like that over my career. And that's exactly my style of teaching, is trying very deliberately to not get bogged down in the like academia, the like dryness that so much of this has, and to simply put a technique in your hand immediately that makes it click as this like, oh, got it. That's what they were talking about. Like so many of the things that I learned as an artist, I feel like I had to learn myself and then instantly remember that somebody told me this a decade ago. But that's just, I think we kind of have to learn these things for ourselves to make them stick. So that's kind of how I set all of these exercises and projects up, is to sort of force epiphanies to drop out of the sky and become usable. All right, I keep accidentally wandering into like you know, like underwear model abs. We gotta make this guy gross.
I'm curious how he died.
I don't This guy doesn't look dead. He's in better shape than everybody. So you're right. Let's go ahead and determine cause of death here. Trying to keep this YouTube friendly without getting too gory, but you know, I love arrows for this, but that sort of puts him in a fantasy genre. We could just blast a few holes in this guy right in the middle of his chest or something. We could, I don't know, put an arrow through his head. What do you think, Celine? Not touching that one?
I don't know. I mean, the fact that he's so jacked, but he's like hunched over like that, it kind of does seem like he would be hit in the chest.
Yeah, right. I sort of made like Quasimodo instead of a zombie today. So I'll give him a big bell to ring.
Hunchback in Notre Dame.
Yeah, there we go. I gave this video the wrong title. But all right. What I can do, and this will be very fun. I might do this on another layer or copy this just because I'm want to make sure I have a little safety net if I decide to backtrack. But let's start like making his skin sort of break down, and this is definitely going to be gross, but this is all part of the zombie fun. So let's thriller a little bit here. Um, Walking Dead. Now, a great way to do that is just brush in a little dark spot and then sort of erase away little things next to it. So those gross little streaky, I don't know, remnants of cheek when the muscles of the cheek wall start to break down. You really have to, unfortunately, think about these things with zombie art. Um, Also, maybe let's like expose some teeth and gums a little bit more. Basically, just hitting fast forward on the decomposition a bit, which is a hell of a phrase.
Oh
Also,
wow, part of his chin's just gone now.
easy peasy.
What kind of tablet are you using? Is it a screen on-screen tablet or are you
No,
screenless?
this is a Wacom Intuos Pro. I'm kind of in the minority there, but I prefer a desk tablet to a screen. They're cool, but I learned on one of these, so that disconnect between the screen and your hand does not really bother me in the way, that's the most common complaint I hear. And I also like that your hand is not like covering what you're trying to draw. I can just see everything without having to kind of look around my hand, which again, like that's a habit I could break if I just practiced for a month, but I sort of just like my desktop stylus. Um, this has really been a great thing. I had a Wacom Intuos 3 for like 15 years. I gave it to my son a couple of years ago, but it still works. And it's like the surface of it just looked scratched. That thing really went the distance. But I've been really happy with this.
We got someone asking, what exercises or studies help you learn to light the anatomy so it feels natural and believable?
Yeah, a really quick one that I love is just the idea of a shadow line. So if we just make, that's way too thick. I forgot how small this was. If we make a circle and then with like really low flow and opacity once again, if I just kind of make a barely there little shadow line where I imagine the highlight and the shadow meet, it sort of very quickly tricks your eyes into thinking this thing is round, right? Because this feels like reflected light. It feels like bounced light. So a lot of what I'm doing is just based on that, kind of like the highlight shape, a little bit of shadow, and then like trying to let it become light again. So along those lines, I could probably erase away some of this darkness, and it actually makes this pec muscle look a lot rounder. Isn't that cool? And it's because it feels like the light from this arm is now like bouncing onto that undersurface. And before I did that, I think it still looked pretty round, but that really helps. So like whenever we have those planes facing downward towards something else that is catching a lot of highlight, really bouncing that light up, really helps. This simple kind of schematic figure of just highlight, core shadow, and then bounced light. Um, I love that. And that whole like system of shadow line shading is really empowering for organic stuff, like for figure drawing specifically, because of how, I don't know, when drawing people with ink, it's really hard because we have to either, make that line to describe that subtle crease or not. Like if we don't add it, it's like the form isn't there. But if we add too many, it's all weird and over described. And I was never happy with either option. So this is sort of a way to do both. It's like the lines are there, the thing is described and sculpted, but I haven't gotten all mired in, line after line after line. It's sort of just things with shades of gray. It's kind of more shading than actual ink drawing. Good question. This
On
thing
that
is really helpful. Yeah.
on that note,
Mhm.
do you only paint people with orange value painting method, or do you ever go straight in with the paint?
I almost always still do that orange value thing. And I, I, I do not remember why I started that, only that I just sort of did at one point, and I was like, that kind of looks cool, and for some reason I stuck with it. It's really arbitrary because it's all just designed to kind of get us to this uh, basic description of values that we can then pretty easily convert into a color scheme with a technique you've probably seen me do on YouTube or in a course somewhere. So like it's all there are lots of different ways to get to that step, but that is the one that I usually use. Now, I have before, if I needed to like maybe do something fast, or if there were like lots of characters in a scene, I'll sort of just sample the palette off of one, like paste in a blurry version of a face so that I can get those different hue zones and just start painting that in directly. And that often feels like, I wonder, wow, this is what it would be like if I didn't do the orange thing. But what I like about the orange values is that it lets you compartmentalize. It lets you sort of solve one thing at a time. Like this is what my values, need to look like. This is what lets you solve that. Think about form in 3 dimensions and light and value edges. How are we going to sculpt all of these things? Lets you kind of concern yourself with one thing at a time so that it doesn't like, I don't know, when we're trying to do everything at once, I feel like that's when we, too many things to juggle and it collapses. I have unleashed this army of artists who make orange values because of that. Cool. Um, I could noodle this all day, but we're still in kind of getting to about what I had imagined for like our target timing here. So I'm having fun noodling with this, but maybe we'll bring this in for a landing pretty soon. But if anybody has any other questions about anything, um, let us know, and maybe I'll take another one or two, and we'll call it a day.
Someone's asking, how would you move forward to a full painting using the soft pencil technique you're using here?
Awesome. So, what I love about this is that, can I'm trying to think if there's a video that I can grab. Um, yeah, bear with me really quickly. I actually want to show a YouTube video that has something that I think really captures this. It is, where are you? All right. This kind of old guy. So here's the yellow values. What I've done with this one is I have kept a copy of the line art so that I can actually make a selection from the line art and paint with multiply, which is really great to kind of carve out some of the little small forms. So for this guy, I would do my value painting. I would like make all of these forms look round, but then I find that a value painting often gets sort of soft and fuzzy, and I'm looking for some way to like describe some things with a lot of crispness. That is the perfect time to just select your drawing and then paint with multiply right onto your painting, and it kind of adds that crispness. It's really cool. So it's a good thing to preserve your line art, even though we're trying to sort of move beyond lines when we are painting and think more in terms of forms and shapes and light and all of that important stuff. But that is don't ditch that line art entirely. Hang on to that and it can save you later. Good one. Yeah. Maybe that is a good place to land this one. But thank you to everybody who showed up. I hope this was fun. This was incredibly fun for me. I could draw weird little lumpy muscle shapes and bizarre tortured faces all day. Um, and I hope you enjoyed the look at the people program. Just to close, one last invitation. If anybody has a question, the main page for this course, all the way at the bottom, is this, and you will hear directly from me. So if you're considering this, want to know what you're getting out of it, what's expected of the artists who enroll, or just how anything works, please ask me a question. I'm always here to help with that. Other than that, I think I will say thanks, and we'll catch you guys next time. Celine, thanks for your help. Bye, guys.